So, hello and welcome. Elton Boocock from Business Pilot, and with me I've got Simon Jarman, good friend of mine from Clever Bean Accounting. We have a really good partnership with Clever Bean Accounting, and that's what I want to try and get some of Simon's knowledge out today. It's invaluable for the installers, so that's what I'm really keen to do. Um, Before I go in, I can't actually believe I'm sort of asking this, Simon, but for you to introduce yourself, I thought everybody knew who you were. So, just in case there's somebody who doesn't, could you just give me an intro to yourself, Simon?
Yeah, sure, Elton. I'm Simon. I'm lucky enough to have joined the window industry back in 1995, so I'm now 30 years in. And I joined Everest as a lowly management accountant. And over a period of time, I worked eventually for Everest for 16 years, and I became their CFO and ultimately their CEO. And I ran that business for 8 years when it was kind of at the peak of its performance. Um, I left Everest nearly 15 years ago, and I've done various different things since, both inside and outside the window industry. Most of it in the window industry. I always call the window industry a little bit like Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. And most of what I've done is working for private equity companies as a CEO, and kind of through those many years, I've learned a lot about the window industry, and I've learned a lot about business in general. There's been good times, there's been challenging times. I think you often learn more from the challenging stuff than you do from the good times. And about 2 years ago, in 2023, I decided that I wanted to set up my own business. It was something I wanted to do for a very long time. Um, and I set up Clever Bean Accounting. And the concept of that is to take some of those learnings that I've had over many years of industry knowledge, and try and use it to help installers in the main become better, stronger, more profitable, growing businesses.
Great. So, for those that are just finding out about Clever Bean Accounting and Business Pilot and how we work together, we've been partners now for a number of years. So, as a result of that, we've got a few sort of shared customers because Simon's working, or the team at Clever Bean are working with installers. Business Pilot is there for installers, so we've got a few sort of shared clients as a result. And they get to, I suppose, benefit from a wealth of knowledge that you're going to find out more from Simon. But you can already see, that experience that he brings, and obviously what we deem to be the best tool in the industry. Of course, we're going to say that, but Simon's customers obviously get to use Business Pilot and the tools that they work with Simon. You get to use the best of both. So I wonder if you could sort of talk me through some of the ways, your or our users basically use Business Pilot alongside their sort of business finance management and so on.
Yeah, certainly. So I think that, yeah, the first thing I'd say is that probably 80% of my client base is using Business Pilot. And those that aren't using Business Pilot are typically using a system that is non-window industry specific. So it might be a Zoho or a Monday.com that's been adapted. And as a result, it's a very generic approach for those guys. Whereas the Business Pilot system is specific for the window and door industry. And the thing I always say is, I think it's a blueprint for running a window installation business. And a lot of the time, people that start a window installation business do so from having come either through the trades they've come from a sales role, but they've typically worked for somebody else, and it's their own kind of first venture into running their own business. And there's so much to do. You don't know where to start.
Mm.
I think there's a kind of a huge amount of overwhelm, and there's also quite a lot of you don't know what you don't know. And for me, what Business Pilot does is it gives you that infrastructure and platform to run that business because it's got everything in it you need to run a business. So I think it's a massive leg up to anyone starting their business, um, but also obviously extremely useful for anyone that's well established. So that's kind of a non-finance specific thing.
Mm.
Um, but from a finance perspective, it gives you everything you need to measure your business. And for us, measuring everything that's going on in your business is absolutely critical. And it's something that a lot of small business owners just kind of simply don't do. So, first of all, it's got a huge reporting suite. If you want management information, you can get it out of Business Pilot, whether it's operational information, tracking your productivity, whether it's sales and marketing information, which is something that's absolutely critical. How do you measure your level of inquiry, your conversion of inquiry to appointment, your level of appointment conversion to sale? All that data is crucial for running a window and door business, and that sits in there. And then, of course, you've got the financial data, and the financial data allows you to measure your profitability by job, which is key. It also allows you to measure your profitability by business stream, which for me, in some cases, is even more key. So, yeah, you'll have a lot of installation businesses, for example, that will do some retail, some commercial, some new build, some supply only. And to really understand which parts of those businesses are profitable and which aren't, you need to be able to separate them. And Business Pilot allows you to do that through its contract type functionality, which is incredibly useful. Sales invoicing, all of your invoices can be raised and managed very easily through Business Pilot, and it then integrates fairly seamlessly into the accounting system, which just makes life easy and helps us capture that data very simply. I've touched on the job costing. I think that's a huge benefit. You're able to enter invoices specifically to every single job, and that tells you which jobs are profitable, which ones aren't. But also, it allows you to do analysis later. So if we find out through looking at the accounts that there's a particular area of the business that seems to be out of whack with what maybe best practice is, having all that job costing data allows us to drill down and really find out where the problem is afterwards, which then allows us to make tweaks and drive that business back towards achieving the kind of gross margins that it should do. I've touched briefly on the integration with the accounting software. That just makes life very, very simple and slick. We always recommend customers use Xero, and Business Pilot integrates very, very nicely with Xero. And it also allows you to control things like your debtors. You can see what customers owe you what. You can control your stock through it. So it's an all-encompassing system that allows you to really have control over your business.
Thanks, Simon. I was literally just talking before we came on and did this with a customer there, looking at fine tuning what they're doing on the accounting side and software, and the hours that they're currently doing, if you like, bookkeeping, that will be saved by just integrating with Xero and doing things smarter. I agree, but Xero is the one I'd be recommending, even though obviously we integrate with others, but yeah, I'm with you on that. Um, There's one question I really wanted to ask you, and I think you've covered some of it anyway, but I'll just ask it. We I see a lot. I mean, you put a lot out on social media to help installers. You write various columns again, all aimed at helping the installer. And a key message that always comes out, and we've had conversations about it as well, but a key message is about knowing your numbers, understanding the finances within the business. Um, how good would you say we are as an industry at doing that?
So it depends on which bit of the industry we're looking at.
Yeah.
We've got system houses through hardware businesses, through glass processors, through fabricators, through installers. And I think typically the larger the business, the better it is at that. But your focus, Business Pilot's
Mm,
focus, and my focus is the installer end of the industry. Um, and the installer end of the industry is, for me, the most important part
mm,
because it's the installers that drive everything else that I've just talked about. If we don't have people selling to the homeowner, we don't have fabricators and we don't have glass processors and we don't have system houses because there's no demand for it. So they're kind of the lifeblood of the industry, and the better they perform, it props up the whole industry or makes the whole industry kind of prosper. So it's really, really important that we make those businesses as strong as they can be. And an absolutely fundamental part of being strong is knowing which bits of your business are working and which bits aren't. And our mantra is: if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. And unfortunately, at installer level, we are very, very poor as an industry at doing
mm,
that. A significant majority of businesses just go from day to day without having any real idea of what's working for them and what isn't, because they don't measure it. And even if they did measure it, they wouldn't know how to compare it with what good looks like.
mm.
So, for me, if we can get our installer base understanding their numbers better, understanding what's making their business work, they will become better businesses. They will make more margin, they'll become more sustainable, they will grow, and it will lift the whole industry. So, yeah, to answer your question, we need to get better at the installer level.
Yeah, I see that. With Business Pilot, we deal with a range of, obviously it's all installers. The software is only for installers, and we see a wide range. Some that are running when they come to Business Pilot, they're running very efficiently. They do know their numbers, and others that are more focused on getting the job done, not necessarily understanding all the stuff behind it. What I really like, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of stuff like we're just doing this little interview, and clearly you and I have had many, many conversations. So there's a lot of stuff known that's not as part of this. But what I do know of, yourself and Business Pilot, so Clever Bean, Business Pilot, but also you individually, Simon, and your passion for the sector is we're not trying to add on extra work. Actually, the opposite, trying to be that support around to allow the installers to carry on focusing on just doing the job, getting the work done, whether that's selling it, but pricing it, fitting it, all the bits to get done, but having a wrapper around that helps them to do that in the most efficient way. And whether that is Business Pilot managing the processes or Clever Bean helping to get those numbers, extract the data, but turning it into words and actions. Understanding it, because that's the key. There's no point having the numbers. It's understanding the numbers as well, and that's something what I see you guys doing, and if you like, the Clever Bean effect That's how I would describe it. Um, so, are there any other sort of things that you've seen?
So I mean, just to kind of touch on that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Installers want to get on with the day job,
Mm,
and often they see accounting as a necessary evil, as opposed to something they have to do, as opposed to something that adds value to the business.
mm,
And that's a mindset that needs to change. And the reason for that is because the majority of accountants for this part of our industry are what I call a year-end accountant. So they have a multitude of different client types: taxi drivers, hairdressers, whatever it might be, and a few window businesses, or maybe just one window business. They know nothing about window businesses. They don't speak the language of windows and doors, and they don't offer any advice as to how to run the business because they've never run a business themselves, let
mm,
alone a window business. So all they really do is provide compliance, the stuff that you need to do to meet the regulations: year-end accounts, corporation tax returns, payroll, VAT, that kind of thing. And that's why it's seen as a cost, because it is. It doesn't add any value in its current form.
mm,
And if we can change the mindset so that what is being offered is actually going to create value in the business, it's no longer a cost, it's an investment. And there's a return on that investment. And one of the things that I always say to my clients is it's highly unlikely that whatever it costs you to implement systems such as Business Pilot or the work that we do, it's highly unlikely that you're not going to get at least 10 times the value of that investment back in terms of improved profit. And I do think that's a mindset that needs to change. Now, if you, going back to your point about owners wanting to just get on with the day job, once you've got a system like Business Pilot in place, you've got structure, you've got process. Much of what's done in there becomes automated. And the more automation that we can put through these businesses, the more time business owners will have to focus on what they really want to do, which is driving the business on,
yeah.
selling more product and fitting more product. So we're a facilitator to giving them a better life, better work experience, and making them more profit. The numbers themselves need to be interpreted. You talked about analysing them, and what we will do is produce information on a monthly basis, which shows the installer exactly what's working for them, um, where they're performing against the best in the industry. One of the benefits for us is that we work with
Mm,
so many different window and door businesses that we know what good looks like. We can see which ones are doing it really well, and we can see which ones are doing it less well. And then when we find one that's doing something less well, for
mhm,
example, it's overspending on its installation costs, then we can immediately start putting in a plan to fix that and drive it back to where it needs to be. So, let me give you an example. Yeah, typically, a window and door business that's doing mainly PVCU product should be targeting to achieve installation costs of around 20% of its revenue. So if you're a £1 million turnover business, you're probably going to be spending in the order of £200,000 on your installation costs. Now that's going to include your fitter fees. It's going to include fencer certificates, vehicle rental if you're supplying vans, fuel. It's going to include waste removal, planning permission, the whole every trims, consumables, everything that goes into fitting a job. We were talking to a business recently who thought it was doing a great job. Thought they'd got really good control on their fit cost, and it turned out that when we gave them their numbers, they were at 35% in terms of cost as a percentage of their revenue. So they were spending £350,000 a year as £1 million turnover business when they should have been spending 200,000. And having the data from Business Pilot and then us interpreting it allows us to see that, and then we can immediately go, well, why are you spending £150,000 more? And what are we going to do once we've identified that problem to fix it? In this case, it was relatively straightforward. They were just putting too many people on the job, and they'd got a pay structure that didn't incentivize productivity. It actually did the reverse, and it incentivized fitters to go slower. So with a few small tweaks, that business is going to add over 100,000 of additional profitability per year, which is huge.
What you've just said there, that is the kind of gold dust. I mean, we haven't got into lots of it. Obviously, I've heard lots of it and seen lots from the stuff that you've done in columns and so on, Simon. But to me, that is the clever bean effect that I spoke about. You know this industry. So you're not just looking and going, okay, it's 350. No, you've got the context to know it shouldn't be 350, it should be 200. So you know where to start pressing. And you know where to start looking straight away. And that's where people, you referred to it in Business Pilot as the blueprint, and I refer to it as, the clever bean effect, as it were. It's the same thing in that we know how this should be done based upon a lot of experience. And therefore, if you're outside of that norm, you won't necessarily know that because you're in, to some degree, you're an island. You might know a couple of installers. You probably don't give them the full picture of your business. You wouldn't want to necessarily. But by using tools like Business Pilot, teams like Cleverbean, we can guide people. And I think that's where, we started this whole thing as, we're a partnership. We work as partners with each other. And I'm so glad that you guys are partners of ours because of the value that you bring to installers, which is all of what we're about. So it's time for us to sort of wrap things up a little bit. So, I mean, I always think your knowledge, Simon, is gold dust. So thank you for sharing a little bit of that. And, I really appreciate that. We said about the partnership for Cleverbean accounting customers. Obviously, Business Pilot do a 50% off the first quarter's license fees to sort of help that along. You can just book a demo on the website. You can see the system, play around with it. The guys know the system anyway, so you can talk to them about it. So yeah, over to you, Simon, just to close us up a bit.
Well, yeah, it's just to reinforce that message is that any Business Pilot customers that want to start using us will get 50% off their first 3 months by way of a cashback. But I think the most important thing is, if anyone takes anything out of this, it's to understand that, first of all, it's really, really important to have structure and process in your business. If you don't have that, it becomes very, very difficult to run it. And that's where you're going to end up being out of control, run ragged, spending too many hours. And if you can nail those systems, then you start getting hours back, and it allows you to focus on your business. And that's where Business Pilot kind of can really help. And the other big takeaway is you have to know your numbers. And if you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. get a grip on your numbers. It allows you to make good decisions about how to improve your business going forwards, because those are data-driven decisions rather than gut feel decisions. It identifies what's working, what isn't, and it puts you on a pathway to a much more profitable, strong, healthy, sustainable business for the future.
Brilliant. Thanks for your time, Simon.
Thanks, Elton. Good to see you.